Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punches!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig? Today is Tuesday, September 20th, 2022. Roland Martin Unfiltered, broadcasted live on the Black Star Network here in Los Angeles. On today's show, Vice President Kamala Harris, she's in South Carolina, giving the convocation at South Carolina State. We'll show you what took place there. And also, you know, folks were showing out. The band was showing out. The sororities were showing out. And so we'll have a little bit of that as well. Also, on today's show, we'll talk with the mayor of Kansas City. The Department of Justice has launched an investigation into the hiring practices in that department. We, of course, have been highlighting that along with the Kansas City Area Urban League. And so we'll be discussing that on today's show. A Texas sheriff is investigating Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, his decision to send 50 migrants to Martha's Vineyard. Also, those migrants have filed a class action lawsuit against Ron DeSantis for his actions. Also, on today's show, we'll hear from Wisconsin Lieutenant Governor Mandela Barnes, who is trying to unseat Ron Johnson as the next United States Senator from Wisconsin. Plus, there are 11 black candidates who are vying for U.S. Senate seats across the country. We'll talk with one of them who's running for the Senate in Alabama. Also, on today's show, folks, a white Georgia bus driver has been fired for pushing black children to the back of the bus. Also, we lost two African Americans. Baseball great Maury and also Philadelphia pastor Herbert Lusk. In our marketplace segment, an actor had to create his own skincare line for his melanated skin. We'll talk with him. It is time to bring the funk on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the broadcast on the Black Star Network. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the miss, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on Go, Roll, Roll, y'all. It's Roland Martin, rolling with Roland now. He's funk, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now.
Vice President Kamala Harris was in South Carolina today speaking at South Carolina State for their convocation. Folks there were excited to see the first black vice president. And here is some of what she had to say.
and it is so good to be back at South Carolina State University. So before I begin my comments, let me thank the Marching 101, because they do not disappoint. So today, of course, we are also joined by Secretary Cardona, who is one of the champions of our nation's students. Secretary Cardona, I thank you for your leadership and your work. And to Mayor Butler for welcoming us back to Orangeburg, I thank you. To President Conyers, always, for your leadership and for welcoming us to campus. Students, it is an honor to join you at a convocation. And to all of the freshmen, can I see, where are the freshmen? So to the freshmen here today, I will say to you specifically for a moment, and to all of the freshmen, can I see, where
All right, folks, so we're going to do this here. We're going to switch some audio. So that was a pool feed of Vice President Kamala Harris. That audio is horrible. And so, folks in the control room, let me know when we have the White House feed that was up on their YouTube channel ready to play. Much better audio. You can hear her, far more clarity. And so I want to get out of that. I don't want to play that because the audio is just not good for me. And so let me know, y'all, when y'all have the video ready again. And so the White House YouTube channel, they did, of course, broadcast her speech, much better audio feed. And so we want to play that for you so you can actually hear with better clarity. All right, so go ahead and play it now.
Carolina, I really do love this state, and it is so good to be back at South Carolina State University. So before I begin my comments, let me thank the Marching 101, because y'all are doing your thing. They do not disappoint. So today, of course, we are also joined by Secretary Cardona, who is one of the champions of our nation's students. Secretary Cardona, I thank you for your leadership and your work. And to Mayor Butler for welcoming us back to Orangeburg, I thank you. To President Conyers, always, for your leadership and for welcoming us to campus. Students, it is an honor to join you at convocation. And to all of the freshmen, can I see, where are the freshmen? So to the freshmen here today, I will say to you specifically for a moment, this is the beginning of a great journey for you. It's a great journey. For the next 4 years, you are going to have an experience that will shape the rest of your life. The lessons that you will learn here at SC State, both inside and outside the classroom, will guide you for years to come. And of course, during your time here, you'll face challenges. And through those challenges, you will learn that you are strong enough, resilient enough, and brave enough to overcome any obstacle. And you know, joining you this afternoon, it takes me back to when I was 17 and flew from California to Washington, D.C. to start my first year at Howard University. And I will always remember walking into freshman orientation to a room very much like this one, and very much like this one. The seats were packed with students and faculty and alumni who, just like for you, all look like us. And it was exhilarating. I don't think at the time I understood how special that moment was, where you were surrounded and you are surrounded by people from different places and different backgrounds who are joined together in community, where you are surrounded by people who I promise you, some will ask you to be in their wedding, others will ask you to be godparent to their child. Some of them will ask you, please do come to my inauguration. You are, students, united by the pursuit of excellence. And I remember back in that day, what I believe you must be feeling today, which is to feel the possibility of great opportunity, to feel the vigorous welcome that you are being given for you to lead. So to all the students here today, I say, there is no limit to your capacity for greatness. There is no obstacle that you cannot overcome. And believe me, there is no barrier that you cannot break. And so, as Vice President of the United States, I urge you to seize on that. Because in this moment, our nation needs your leadership. Today, we live in unsettled times. The ideals that we thought were long established, such as overseas, what we're seeing, the sovereignty of democratic nations, we thought was long settled. Domestically, we thought long settled would be the freedom of voters to decide elections. Long settled, we thought, would be the freedom of women to make decisions about their own future. We thought we could take for granted what constitutes the truth. But these ideals now hang in the balance. And in moments of great crisis, our nation has almost every time turned to our young leaders to help guide us forward. Just remember, John Lewis was only 23 when he spoke during the March on Washington. 23. Diane Nash was just 21 years old when she led the Nashville sit-ins to protest racial segregation. And the great Jim Clyburn was in his early 20s when he was jailed for protesting for civil rights. In fact, it was in that jail where he met his beloved wife, the late Dr. Emily England Clyburn. And as you guys know, I think, they were both proud graduates of this very institution. So that to say, students, we turn to you once again. Your nation turns to you. Because to move America forward, we need you. We need your passion, your purpose, and your excellence. We need your leadership for so many reasons and on so many issues. We need your leadership to help grow our economy. We need your leadership to protect our planet, to drive innovation, and to fight for equity and justice. We need your leadership to build on an economy that works for everyone. Far too many people on that point, and far too many communities in our country are being left behind. So we have invested $12 billion in community banks, which specialize in lending to minority and rural communities. But we need you to then access that capital, to build a business, to be invested in your community, to allow you to buy a home and be part of the leadership of neighborhoods and society. We need your leadership on the climate crisis. Just think, in your lifetime, your generation has experienced the 10 hottest summers on record. You all have. You have seen communities decimated by wildfires, flooded by hurricanes, and choked by drought. And you know then, we must treat the climate crisis like the crisis it is. And we're doing our part in terms of our administration to make the largest investment in history in fighting that crisis. But to implement that vision, we need you. We need chemical engineers to help us design more efficient solar panels. We need architects to help us build more sustainable homes and communities. We need climate scientists to help us model the impact of rising seas and warming temperatures. And we need you in those positions to also do the work of helping us to fight for environmental justice and equity. We need you. As Vice President, I am the chair of the National Space Council.
I want to bring in my panel right now. We joining us, Michael Brown, former chair of the DNC Finance Committee, Randy Bryant, diversity and inclusion strategist, speaker, trainer, and writer, also Tarun Walker, founder of Context Media. Glad to have both of you. I'm going to start with you, Tarun, and that is here. Somebody watching may say, I don't understand why Vice President Kamala Harris is bringing up climate. Well, first of all, South Carolina is impacted by hurricanes on the Atlantic coast. We're talking about flooding as well. This is one of the critical issues in this election. And for the generation she is speaking to, this is one of those top concerns. And I do think it's important for the vice president to be going to HBCU campuses, laying out the things that this administration has done when it comes to a lot of positive developments, and explain to folks how African Americans are benefiting from these bills that are being passed and signed into law.
You know, to be honest with you, I feel like some of this is a case of better late than never, because this is something that I've said that the Democratic Party and Vice President Harris and President Biden have been needed to do almost since they were sworn in. There is a lot of disconnect between what actual policy is being done and what people on the ground and people who are concerned voters are getting as far as information. There's been this holdover from the Obama administration where we feel like just the good work that we're doing should be enough, but that's not enough. You have to be able to go out to the public and tell people what you're going to do, how you're going to do it, and explain to the people. So I'm glad to see that it's happening now, but I really wish this would have happened a little bit earlier than now. But it's good to get it out now.
Well, but Michael, here's one of the realities. One of the realities is that COVID played a huge role in the inability of them to get out. I talked to Vice President Harris when she was in Selma. That was one of the few places. And so COVID prevented her and the president from really doing what presidents and vice presidents normally do, traveling the country, barnstorming, if you will, telling their story and trumpeting the positive things they've done.
Ever a bad, and first, good evening, Roland, and to my fellow panelists. I don't think there's ever a bad time to talk about climate. I mean, it's something that's impacting us literally every day, every minute. When we can see what's happening, just not in Puerto Rico, but Turks and Caicos. We're lucky that this storm is going to veer off to the Atlantic. But there's never a bad time to talk about it. If the vice president chooses HBCUs to talk about climate, great. Plus, the wonderful opportunities there are for careers related to climate and solar. So the fact that she's going to an HBCU to talk about this is exactly what she should be doing. And so I commend the vice president, whether it's voting rights, whether it's climate, whether it's civil rights, whether it's making sure we level the playing field for businesses to succeed in this country. I think the vice president's doing the right thing.
Randy, your thoughts?
Yeah, of course, I also feel that it was great that she is talking about the environment and climate. What I hope is that people were able to make the connection of how it affects us African Americans directly. I believe that sometimes we think that the climate and the environment is a rich person's issue or something that is so distant from us, whereas it affects our communities all of the time. I mean, even looking at some of the natural disasters that have happened, where our neighborhoods are placed because of redlining and things, and how we're affected when these disasters do happen, how we do not receive the same amount of aid. So I really want the students to understand that it is an issue that directly impacts us daily.
Indeed. I think what's going to happen is, again, you saw President Biden on 60 Minutes where he declared the pandemic over. I would disagree with him on that. But I do believe because you have seen the increase in vaccinations and you've seen things that have happened, that's going to cause them to get out more. You don't doubt you're going to see that happen a lot more next month, the final month before the midterm elections. But I do think Tarun is correct. And I've long said you've got to be able to successfully sell your story, and you can't just say, hey, list things in a white paper. We ran an ad last week by Congressman Eric Swalwell that I thought was excellent. You have to have more of that. The Lincoln Project actually put out one. I'm going to play that a little bit later. That explains things that they have done. And that was I don't understand why Democrats can't hire messengers like the Lincoln Project to actually show people and explain to people the things that they've actually done. So we're going to actually talk about that. And one of the things that this administration has not done a good job of is talk about the great things in its Department of Justice. We're going to take a break. Coming up next, we're going to talk about the Department of Justice Civil Rights Division launching an investigation into the Kansas City, Missouri Police Department over hiring practices dealing with the issue of race. We'll talk with the mayor of Kansas City as well when we come back. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Don't forget, download the Black Star Network app, available on all platforms: Apple phone, Android phone, Apple TV, Android TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Xbox One, Samsung Smart TV, and of course, you can join the Bring the Funk fan club. Your dollars make it possible for us to do what we do, traveling this country, covering the stories that matter to you. Check in money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. Cash App, $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. We'll be right back.
When we invest in ourselves, our glow, our vision, our vibe, we all shine. Together, we are black beyond measure.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol, we've seen shooting.
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, Dave.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
When we invest in ourselves, we all shine. Together, we are black beyond measure.
Hi, y'all doing? It's your favorite funny girl, Amanda Seals.
Hi, I'm Anthony Brown from Anthony Brown and Group Therapy.
What up, Lana Well, and you are watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Welcome back to Roland Martin Unfiltered, broadcasting live from Los Angeles. The Civil Rights Division of the Department of Justice announced yesterday that they had notified the Kansas City, Missouri that they were launching an investigation into its employment practices. The department has been named in several lawsuits alleging discrimination. In August, a Kansas City police detective sued the department, claiming he was punished for reporting another officer's illegal search. In April, a KCPD sergeant sued over alleged racial profiling during a traffic stop. Later that month, 2 black female police officers sued the department alleging discrimination, retaliation, and a hostile work environment. In November 2020, 3 black female detectives sued the police department, claiming they were discriminated against during an investigation into the Crimes Against Children unit. Joining us now is the mayor of Kansas City, Missouri, Quentin D. Lucas. Mayor Lucas, glad to have you here on Roland Martin Unfiltered. First and foremost, how do you respond to this DOJ investigation into your city's police department and its hiring practices?
So a few different things. I mean, first of all, and I know you've been out here, thank you for covering this story. This is the biggest problem with having a state-appointed police board. Kansas City is different than a lot of other cities, where the mayor typically would be the one who's appointing a police commissioner or a police chief. Here, the governor of Missouri, almost always a person who is more conservative than the mayor of the city, certainly more conservative than the city council, is able to appoint 4 of the 5 police commissioners. This also then leads to a almost complete, in my opinion, lack of accountability. So where you have issues like this happening again and again, right, you have nothing happening in terms of what we do to fix it. That presents a huge problem. And I'll say this briefly and break for some questions. For me, what is most interesting, any of us who have met black police officers know that oftentimes they're not people who are necessarily trying to be progressive or trying to tear down the police department. This means that these are men and women, actually, who have spent decades on this department, worn the uniform for this department, put their lives on the line for the city, and they have not felt their efforts reciprocated when they've talked about whistleblowing, when they've looked for respect, and indeed even when they've been stopped driving while black. This is a substantial problem for us, and I think it's important that we get to the bottom of that investigation, and I hope we do that notwithstanding what the Department of Justice does. We, in Kansas City, should try to do our own.
But Mayor, I was there in Kansas City when the Urban League had their forum, and the reality is that commission that you're talking about, you're a member of it. What's the problem then? You've got a black pastor who is the chair of that commission. You've got other members. Are you saying that that commission has failed the residents of Kansas City, Missouri, in properly investigating the police department?
You know, I think it is fair to say the answer to that question is yes. I think that the setup that we have, the construct that we have, does not actually lead to real investigations. Or else you would actually see more discussion of some of these issues, or else this would be centered in the public discourse. Instead, what we are in too many situations having is a situation where we rubber stamp too many different police practices. I think that it is important for us to be very fair to our officers. We go through all of that all the time, but also to make sure that if there is a whistleblower, they know that they're not running into punishment immediately thereafter, which has led to a lawsuit. If there is somebody who says, why was I stopped improperly? I suspect that I'm black, that it isn't just kind of dismissed out of hand and we keep it moving. And so I won't, cast aspersions on these individuals as human beings. What I will say is that the system where we have a state police commission, where it has no need to be responsive to the people of Kansas City, leads to a situation where you have more and more practices like this one. And so therefore there are many in Kansas City who were not surprised that we had an investigation launched, although today all I could think of was that since the Biden administration has started, there's been an investigation of Minneapolis, we all know why, and now Kansas City. And that should lead us to ask more questions about how we can do better on all this.
One of the things that when I was there, residents said they want local control, and then they want a city council that believes in that. But also, you're in a situation where you're funding the police department, but you have no control. So the question is this here. Will you pull back the purse strings to demand the kind of changes? Yes, you have this commission that's set up, but the reality is it's nonsensical to me that Here you are, the mayor of a city. You got taxpayer money. You're funding a system that you have no control over whatsoever. And so what powers are you willing, or what things are you willing to do to get the other commissioners to understand they need to be listening to the residents? Is withholding those funds one of those things to get their attention to say, unless you do A, B, C, D, we're not going to send the money to you?
You know, I think on the funding question, we have taken real steps to make sure that we're getting more responsibility. State law currently requires us to spend 20% of our budget on the Kansas City Police Department. We consistently go well over that amount. Last year, we negotiated with the Board of Police Commissioners an agreement as to how money over that amount would be spent. The state of Missouri has now tried to change it and increase the budget threshold. We, in an ordinance sponsored by me, have filed a lawsuit against the state of Missouri to make sure that we retain that budget amount. To me, it's not so much about, look, I'm not a defunder. I'm not necessarily a cutter. I am somebody who wants to make sure that we have accountability. I am somebody who wants to make sure that...
And I'm not speaking of defunding. I'm not speaking of defunding. What I'm speaking of, again, Congress does this all the time, where Congress will withhold money and say, all right, unless you make some changes, then you're not going to get the money. Republicans do this. So any Republican try to call, say you're defunding. No, this is about, there's no way in the world. And again, I covered city government in Fort Worth. I covered county government in Austin, Texas. I covered city government in Dallas and Houston and Chicago. And it is astounding to me that you have a system where the governor appoints a commission to oversee the police department that the taxpayers are paying for, and you as the mayor, you can't hire or fire the police chief. You can't implement practices, but they're expecting you, though, to send the check to pay for the very department.
I mean, yes, you're not getting a fight back from me in terms of the fact that it's wild. Now, as for the question of should we withhold funds, appropriate them later in the year, it's my view that that is actually under our legal construct, one, not permissible, two, one that we just have not been able to do and get done. And so I think that what we are trying to do, because we have a separate court order that says that whatever money the budget is at the beginning of the year is frozen for the rest of the year, good or bad in the position of the police department. We are trying to make sure we extract more agreement up front and in advance. This is why actually I think that many have seen the Department of Justice investigation as something that is, at the very least, somewhat helpful, in the sense that there are questions that can be asked. There is an ability for later enforcement of certain types of actions, and more than anything, that the people of Kansas City are hearing an outcome from any number of these issues that have festered for years and years. I think we are seeing steps in certain directions. The president of the Urban League has filed a lawsuit against the Board of Police Commissioners. The city of Kansas City has filed a lawsuit against the Attorney General of this state and the Board of Police Commissioners. So I don't think it's an abdication necessarily of responsibility. It's just saying that we view that through the courts, through the justice system, not unlike you see in policing and criminal justice every day, you will get us to a step where there can be more justice, where there can be actually more accountability. So there's something that makes sure that black officers, black people in the community broadly, can say that we can trust our police department. Right now, I think you have a number of people, and you've talked to them before, who have questions as to whether they can or not.
Just a couple more questions for you, and that is, have your other commission members said a word about this DOJ investigation?
No.
Do they care enough to talk to the public? Are you serious?
I'm serious. No one else has said a word publicly. I mean, look, I'm reading the media every day. I see everything that's happening on social media and all of that. The other commissioners have not said a word about this, and this is not out of the ordinary. The usual process, and you know this because you've been covering the news forever. If you put your head down and nobody pushes back at you 2-3 days later, you think the issue's just going to go away. And I think that's what we've been seeing too long.
I'm just, first of all, for people who don't know, how many members of this commission?
Yeah, we got 5 members of the commission. I'm one of the commissioners. I'm the only one not appointed by the governor of the state of Missouri.
So the other 4 are appointed by the governor of Missouri?
Yes.
to the folks in the control room, I want you to go to their website. I want you to pull up the pictures. People need to see who they are. And what I mean, this is what just disturbs me. I mean, here you have this pastor of who's the chair of the commission, correct? And even when the Kansas City newspaper did that investigation that was just stunning, they're quiet. I mean, it is as if these individuals we're showing right now are thumbing their nose at, frankly, your constituents by saying, we aren't accountable to you. We don't have to answer to you. We have an audience of one, and that's the governor.
I think it is fair to say that right now, yeah, the way that this is set up, and I know they didn't set up the system, but the way it's set up is you don't have to speak back to the public. You don't have to speak. There's this view of independence from politics, but, to me, independence from politics means also independence from accountability. The way that y'all can call on me and Brother Martin, I know there are things that you and I disagree on. There are things certainly that the Urban League and I disagree on, but y'all can take me to account. I have to come and answer your questions. You have a chance to vote on me for those who live in Kansas City. The current system we have in policing in Kansas City, the most expensive budget line item, and obviously one of the most important issues, is that you don't get to say anything or do anything. We just hope for the best. And to me, that is incredibly troubling. And importantly, it's not just troubling to wild-eyed activists. It's not just troubling to advocates. It's troubling now to officers, people who have spent decades in the Kansas City Police Department. I think that's why these questions are being asked.
Absolutely. And I've never seen this level of stonewalling before. These are actually public servants, again, appointed by the governor. Speaking of that, have you heard from the governor about this DOJ investigation? When was the last time you conveyed to the governor that, frankly, this is unfair, how this is set up in Kansas City, and where the residents pretty much don't get to say how their police department is run? Does he care?
You know what? We have conveyed that. I don't think anybody, I don't think anybody cares necessarily. I think that in the politics of today, they just say, hey, we back the blue. We're not going to listen to any of the people, including, oddly enough, the blue. And they're going to keep it moving. And so it is unfortunate. It is the reason why you are seeing lawsuits filed left and right. It's a reason you're seeing federal investigations. It's a reason that you have members of the public asking questions. And again, not just super lefty people. You got moderates. You got people on the right who are saying, well, this just doesn't make sense. How can the Republican Party be the party of local control, right? Local control of their schools, local control of so many activities. But in this situation, in a city, deny the power, particularly of black voices, to be able to have some influence on what's happening in their community each day.
Mayor Lucas, we appreciate it. We look forward to what the DOJ does with regards to their investigation, and hopefully it will lead to some changes because the allegations thus far are startling. And again, as somebody who's covered politics my whole life, I do think it's grossly unfair to ask residents for their taxpayer dollars. And we know in most cities, the lion's share of a city's budget goes to its police department. Just real quick, the percentage of your budget, how much goes to law enforcement?
I think our general revenue, our estimate is about 40% is going to them. And the fire department, you're looking at about 70% of our total budget is in the public safety realm. And so these steps matter.
So 70% goes to police and fire, but of the 40% of your revenue goes to the police department, and you and the residents have no say over that department.
That's correct.
Wow. Mayor Lucas, we appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Thanks so much.
Folks, on Friday, we're going to be joined by the president and CEO of the Greater Urban League of Kansas City, Gwen Grant, along with Maury, who is the CEO of the National Urban League, to talk about this investigation. I'm going to bring my panel back in, Michael Brown, Torun Walker, and Randy Bryant. Randy, I'm going to start with you. As somebody who is a DEI expert, when you look at these type of allegations, these lawsuits when it comes to hiring. Again, what's crazy is people have been complaining for the longest, but the way this thing is set up, again, these 5 commissioners, and really you heard the mayor, so really 4 of the 5 appointed by the governor, they're the ones who have the authority to deal with it. They don't give a damn. It's like, okay, whatever. And I just think that, yes, I know the right's going to throw out, defund the police. I just think that, hey, you got to figure out whichever way possible how to say, no, we ain't cutting a check until some stuff get changed.
You have to make it where there's a reason for them to change. You're exactly right. And money is the greatest motivator. Money is the #1 motivator. I'm just blown away at what the mayor shared with us. And to be very honest, I'm appreciative of his candor. And I believe we need to protect him at all costs because I'm a little concerned. As he shared, he really basically said it's a system that is set up to fail and take advantage of the residents of Kansas City. And when you're talking about unfair hiring, unfair promotion, all of these DEI issues, and you have in charge the exact people that need to change, the exact people that you're investigating, there's no way that people can win, that people can come out victorious. So you do need an outside entity like the DOJ to come in and say, absolutely not, these practices cannot continue. So I'm really happy to see them there.
It is something, Michael, and you've got Democrats all across the country right now. They're even looking at passing a bill in Congress that would give more billions to law enforcement. Democrats are running scared out of fear of Republicans calling them soft on crime. But here's the reality. You can't show me how throwing more billions and billions of dollars somehow is going to fix the problem. And what people are concerned about is here we are using more taxpayer money given on the federal government and give it to law enforcement. And we keep hearing about training and things along those lines. And then cases like this here. In fact, the day after we were in Kansas City, it was funny. I was flying back. The mayor was on my flight, and he was coming to D.C. to participate in a news conference at the White House over the issue of law enforcement and funding. And so the knee-jerk reaction is always give the police department more, and they use it as a battering ram against people. But I'm sorry, you cannot get more money until you fix your damn problems right now.
Well, Roland, as you know, I'm a former elected official here in D.C., and it's interesting to me to hear how tough the mayor has it in Kansas City. I thought we had it tough with the rules that the federal government has. My goodness. I mean, I can't even imagine. I mean, D.C., we run our own police department. The mayor appoints the chief. He has to get confirmed by the council. But I think one of the reasons to your question why elected officials run scared is obviously no one wants to be perceived as soft on crime. And obviously the Republicans try to put the whole defund the police on us as Democrats a while ago. It hasn't really caught, but people are still concerned that they don't want to be anywhere linked to any kind of defunding the police or law enforcement, because now obviously the messaging is changing a little bit, where we see how the right doesn't seem to care much about law enforcement, considering what happened on January 6th. And now they're talking about defund the FBI or defund the Justice Department. So they're having their own messaging problems. But I understand what you're saying. It is very difficult for elected officials in cities, especially now that crime has gone up a little bit in cities and frankly across the country, period. But elected officials, it's tough to go into town hall meetings and not be strong on crime.
To Ron, again, you've got a lot of people out there who are saying, damn this, just sending more and more and more. I mean, and this is where I think a lot of people just don't even think about this. When the mayor just sat there and said 70% of the general budget in Kansas City, Missouri goes to the police and the fire department. you can run that thing in every major city. So when we hear these folks go, oh my God, our morale is low, we don't get any support. What are you talking about? You're sucking up 70% of the city's budget. That means everybody else has to share 30.
You know what? I've heard some really wild numbers and some very high numbers in different cities about how much police departments take out of city budgets. But that I think that's the highest number I've ever heard of. And
it's not. Actually, it's not. It's not.
Really?
There are other places that are higher.
Wow. So look, you can't. I don't know any other profession that you can expect to get 70% of a business's revenue and not be accountable for something. I mean, if you work at McDonald's, you get a review. This is wild. But I think we have to be clear about three things that are happening here. The first thing is that outside of major cities, outside of the Beltway, and outside of the coast, a lot of things like this happen in smaller cities that go fly under the radar because there's not enough media presence to pay attention to it. That happens a lot. So, of course, things like this can happen if you don't have media outside of local media who's holding a council's feet to the fire. This happens because, look, all kinds of horrible things happen outside of the purview of what the media says is a story. And something like us, the police department and a fire department, that get 70% of a city's budget, and they can't provide any kind of accountability for their actions, that's insane. The second thing is this, and this is something that's been happening for at least since the 1980s. What you're seeing happen at the Kansas City Police Department is something you see happen in police departments around the country, because a lot of white supremacist groups, a lot of white supremacists made a conscious decision and a calculated decision to start moving into the police departments of different cities. A lot of these atrocities you see happening to black people in a lot of these cities happen because a lot of police departments have a lot of white supremacists either open among their colleagues or quietly working in their departments, and there's no incentive for a lot of the police departments to push back and find out who they are because it's so ingrained in their culture, in the police culture. The third thing is, because so much money flows into police departments for training and weapons and this sort of thing, but there's no real accountability as far as like where that money goes. And I think what has to happen is if defund the police is a scary word for a lot of Democrats and a lot of people on the left, whatever, we need to talk about maybe bonding police officers the way security guards are bonded, or maybe tying their performance into their pensions, and that sort of thing will make people think about their actions a lot quicker.
Well, check this out before I go to break. This is a story from 2020, the Texas Tribune. Officials in Austin, Dallas, Houston, and San Antonio each spent more than $434 million from their general funds on their respective police departments during the 2020 fiscal year. For each, that was more than a third of the general funds, the portion of city budgets that can largely be distributed to any department because it is not mandated to a specific function. That's more than a third going just to police. You pull in fire, you're talking about 50, 60, 70% going to just two departments. And then they cry, we're so poor, we're so broke, we need more. Gotcha. Maybe if cities spent less on police and more on their people, crime may drop. But you can't show me where spending more on police is going to decrease crime. If you can, prove it. All right, folks, got to go to a break. We come back, we'll talk to the candidate, African-American, who's running for Senate in Alabama. Plus, we'll hear from Mandela Barnes, Lieutenant Governor of Wisconsin, who is trying to unseat incumbent Senator Ron Johnson. We'll cover that and more on Roland Martin Unfiltered, broadcasting live from Los Angeles, folks, where I'm here to cover the Apple Films Sidney Poitier documentary being produced by Oprah Winfrey and Reggie Hutland. That's taking place tomorrow. Folks, download the Black Star Network app where you can get all of our content. This show, Farajii Muhammad Show, Greg Carr, Deborah Owens, Jackie Hood Martin, Stephanie Humphrey, the Rolling with Roland, all of our stuff. Plus, we do live streaming all day, news events happening all day. Download it. Apple phone, Android phone, Apple TV, Android TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Xbox One, Samsung Smart TV, and of course, our goal is to get 2,000 1,000 of our fans contributing $50 this month. We need to raise $100,000 each month until the end of the year. Your support absolutely matters in us being able to do what we do. So please do so, folks, by sending a check and money order to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C., 20037-0196. Cash App, $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. We'll be right back.
When we invest in ourselves, we're investing in what's next for all of us. Growing, creating, making moves that move us all forward. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
Don't you think it's time to get wealthy? I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show on the Black Star Network focuses on the things your financial advisor or bank isn't telling you. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
When we invest in ourselves, our glow, our vision, our vibe, we all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
Hi, I'm Vivian Green.
Hey everybody, this is your man Fred Hammond, and you're watching Roland Martin, my man, Unfiltered.
All right, folks, we've talked to a number of African Americans running for the United States Senate in the country, but did you realize there's someone who's black running for U.S. Senate in Alabama? Meet Dr. Will Boyd, won the Democratic nomination there and is trying to unseat an incumbent there. This is always, folks, a difficult task. We're talking about Alabama of all places, very difficult. He is running against Republican Katie Britt to get the seat for retired Senator Richard Shelby. It was black folks who actually helped put Richard Shelby in the United States Senate when he was a Democrat. But then, of course, he paid them back by converting and flipping to the Republican Party. Dr. Boyd, glad you are joining us from Birmingham. So first and foremost, look, we're talking about Alabama, uphill battle. And how are you trying to convey in that state that you're the best choice when this is the same folk who elected Tommy Tuberville in the last election, who is truly one of the dumbest people ever to be a United States Senator?
Well, enthusiasm is very high right now, Roland, and what I've been telling everyone that I meet is that enthusiasm is about 78% for Democrats right now. Obviously, when we see high numbers like that, we can see great changes even in states like Alabama. We are seeing right now where enthusiasm is higher than it was for President Biden in 2020 and even higher than it was for President Obama at his election in 2008. So right now, we're going to see great gains. Now, the overturning of Roe v. Wade has really pushed some people to get out. We've seen where there's been about a 3% increase in women voters alone since the Roe v. Wade or even the Dobbs decision. We've seen where people are upset because obviously veterans were kind of tossed around a little bit as we were dealing earlier with certain acts that were laws that were being pushed through, whether or not it was going to go or not. And then we see where a number of people are just feeling like they're left behind, their voices are not being heard. So I'm telling everyone everywhere I go that I want to be their voice. So even though maybe the media hasn't been paying a whole lot of attention to this race, this is a historical race. It's an open seat. And by the numbers, Democrats can win this. This is really a blue state, Roland, but people see it as a red state because we have a lot who didn't turn out. When I ran for lieutenant governor in 2018, there were 337,000 African Americans who did not get out to vote. There are about 324,000 who are batting 0 for 3 in the last elections. And there are about 150,000 who have not even shown up for an off-year election or a gubernatorial election like this one. They've only showed up in some cases for presidential. So by the numbers, people that we've targeted, all the issue-based strategies that we've pushed in this great state, we're going to see a record-breaking number of people show up on November 8th, and I'm going to be elected the first African-American United States Senator for the great state of Alabama.
But you say they haven't showed up. How are you going to get them to show up? I can tell you, when I talk to folks in Alabama, folks kind of like, man, look, we ain't got no shot. Can't no Democrat win here. This is a red state. You say it's a blue state. How? Where? I mean, you've had Republican governors, you've had Republican senators, You've got, so where are these Democrats in Alabama?
A number of them just didn't show up to vote. Some roll and feel like they've lost hope. But actually, I'm in the studio right now, just came off the air with someone you know very well, Chris Coleman, on his show, obviously, the think tank B94.9. But one of the things we've been doing every week is going on radio, talking to people about what's at stake, talking about the fact that the economy is at stake, healthcare is at stake, education, environment, women's rights. When we roll these issues off, when we go in with an issues-based campaign, when we tell people who did not vote in the past and how we can actually turn them out by getting them to the polls, they're getting excited. They're getting charged up. So we are using Vote Builder. We're using L2. We're using a number of different tools, and even teams from different states have come in and are helping us hit the ground with a ground game that's never been seen in Alabama before.
One of the things that should be happening in Alabama, there should be a second black congressional seat, but the courts held that up. One of the things you talked about, those African Americans who are not registered. So, what resources are going on the ground? Or how much time are you spending in rural Alabama trying to convince those folks that, yes, if you just pull that lever, just punch that ballot, trust me, your vote does matter. It does count.
Well, I spent a lot of time in the Black Belt. As a matter of fact, the show that we did just a few moments ago, we were live, obviously. We talked about the amendments that are on the ballot, 10 plus one other amendment that is there that's dealing with our 1901 Constitution being rid of actually racist language, believe it or not. But actually, one of the things that we've been doing is talking about the issues you just mentioned. When I enter a Black Belt area or an area where there's a congressional district that has a great of African Americans, one of the things I'm explaining is that our voice has been diminished. When you talk about the redrawing or the gerrymandering of congressional district lines to where the African American voice has been diminished from 29% down to 14%, and this was allowed by not only the local court, so to speak, but the Supreme Court of the United States, something is wrong here. So we have obviously issues that we're battling that will take a court obviously pushing forward and helping us in the long term. But what we can do right now is let people know again how their voices and their votes count. There are a lot of things that have been going on here that aren't right, but we are exposing people. We are showing people what the right strategies are, the right tactics are, and we're moving forward in a way that's exciting. So we've been pushing towards pastors of churches. I'm a bishop. I oversee many churches worldwide, thousands of churches worldwide. I'm a pastor of a 162-year-old church also, former professor and a dean. So I'm employing all of my different areas. I know you're an A Phi A man. I'm an Omega Psi Phi man. So we're working through Divine Nine and others.
I'm sorry about that. I'm sorry about that. And I'm sure Michael Brown is happy because it's rare you get Omegas doing some good stuff. So Michael Brown is probably smiling because he knows when we talk, he knows I ain't lying. Michael, you on mute. See, you can't don't know how to run your laptop. See, Michael, you on mute.
You see how they treat the bros?
I'm not anyway. Maybe with some technology issues. You didn't want the next governor of the state, next senator of the state of Alabama, for he and I to connect, and I think that's very unfair.
Well, what? I mean, I'll help you out. I mean, we got an alpha as in the Senate, Raphael Warnock. But y'all go ahead and catch up. And remember, the first African American since Reconstruction was Republican Ed Brooke, also an alpha.
Why do you always have to keep
say it again?
These names out? We can go name for name forever. We understand that.
No, actually, you can. You can't go name for name because y'all got a short list. Trust me, I don't have enough time on the show to run our list down. But Will, final thought. You got less than 50 days. You got somebody out there who's watching, who's in Alabama, or there's somebody who's watching. They got family in Alabama. And again, they just don't believe. They're like, look, man, these white folks in Alabama are not going to elect no black man. They ain't going to elect no Democrat. So give them your pitch why they should support you.
Every vote matters. I'm someone who wants to represent everybody. The reason why I'm traveling around the state of Alabama night and day is I'm letting people know that I want every Alabamian and American for that matter to have a shot at the American dream. So I'm the best candidate, the best voices out there. If you want to move forward, as I introduced Doug Jones in the past before, I said, put it in D, vote for a Democrat. If you want to go backwards, put it in R. It's time out for us going backwards. We're falling behind in our great state, finishing almost last in many different areas, many different metrics, but it's time to move our state forward. If you visit my website, drwillboyd.com, you'll see actually where I have many different strategies, many different ways in which I want to move our great state and even our nation forward. Alabama, it's time for us living like we're in 1922. It's time for us to come up and be in 2022. With your help and with us turning out every vote, we can win and we can make history so that all Alabamans can be properly served.
All right, then, Doctor. Well, boy, we sure appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Appreciate you, sir.
All right, then. Good luck. All right. Well, come on now. You know how we roll. It's an 06 thing. All right. Yesterday, got a chance to talk with Wisconsin Lieutenant Governor Mandela Barnes. He, of course, is trying to unseat U.S. Senator Ron Johnson in Wisconsin. And here's our conversation. Lieutenant Governor Mandela Barnes, let's just jump right into it. You are in a fierce battle for the United States Senate, and one of the things that jumps out is you're running against someone who I would dare say has become one of the most ardent MAGA disinformation leaders, sowing seeds of discontent on the election, yet privately caught on video saying it was a fair election, Trump lost.
Well, this is a fierce battle for any number of reasons. And you mentioned a lot. And the fact is, he's out of touch with Wisconsin. He's turned his back on the people in the state. He's simply not there for us anymore. He hasn't been. But people are really starting to realize it with the statements that he makes when it comes to putting Social Security and Medicare on the chopping block, wanting to raise the retirement age, saying we have enough jobs when he was all too comfortable making excuses when 1,000 good paying union jobs here in Wisconsin are going to be headed to South Carolina because of his carelessness. And this is what we've been experiencing. So it's twofold. And that's the reason why we got to get rid of Ron Johnson. He's been a disaster for this state. He's been, problematic is one word for the rest of the country.
You are in a state that's quite interesting. You have a Democratic governor, you're a Democrat, but you have Republicans in the legislature who've done all they could to stifle both of you in terms of being able to lead in that state. And so when it comes to, on the ground, and when it comes to really trying to connect with folks, I mean, this is going to be a ground war. Consultants want to spend lots of money on television ads, but it's really going to be getting those folks out. And so, how you've been focused on that, especially in Milwaukee, to drive up those black turnout numbers and other places as well.
Well, I'll tell you, the only reason Republicans control the legislature is because of gerrymandering. Now, without it, they wouldn't have the control, the power they do now to try to stifle our agenda to support working class families in the state by rebuilding the middle class. And with that, turnout is absolutely going to be key. 4 years ago, we had historic turnout, the highest midterm turnout in the history of the state. And we have to do that again this year. But it won't happen just because, right? People need to know what we stand for, what we have been able to accomplish in spite of Republican-controlled legislature, but also how Ron Johnson went to the U.S. Senate, doubled his wealth, and is hell-bent on making everybody else's life harder. Again, think about the benefits people work their entire lives for. Ron Johnson is absolutely against it. When it comes to abortion, he supported legislation that will ban abortion even in cases of rape or incest. This person is not forced, does not truly reflect the values of the state of Wisconsin. And the more we hammer home the message about how awful Ron Johnson has been, and he will be even worse if he gets another 6 years, but also coupling that with the fact that there is a real plan to rebuild the middle class by bringing good paying manufacturing jobs to Wisconsin again. Ron Johnson voted against the CHIPS Act, which will go a long way to to breathe new life into manufacturing, next generation manufacturing in Wisconsin. He stood against that. He's standing against opportunity every step of the way. But in spite of his insistence on doing the wrong thing, we have been doing the right thing. We're going to continue to do the right thing and make sure everybody has health care, make sure that women have access to the reproductive care that they need, and also doing everything we can to protect our democracy.
I remind people that there were 4 cities that Donald Trump was targeting when he was claiming the election was stolen when it wasn't. Atlanta, Philadelphia, Detroit, and specifically Milwaukee. In fact, he paid for a partial recount in Wisconsin, specifically Milwaukee. Those are 4 black cities, if you will. And that's really what I keep telling people January 6th was all about. It was a response to how dare all these black folks come out and vote me out.
Well, look, the problem is with them being so out of touch, for whatever reason, they want to act surprised that they didn't win the election in 2020. If you don't respond to the needs of people, people are going to respond to you at the ballot box. And given the fact that the election was trying to overturn, cities like my hometown in Milwaukee were specifically targeted, just shows what's at stake right now. It shows exactly what's on the line. And in addition to that, too, Ron Johnson tried to send fake electors to Mike Pence, saying that his involvement only lasted a matter of seconds, literally trying to use a 5-second rule for election subversion. They will continue these sorts of attempts if Ron Johnson is reelected, if they get a majority in the U.S. Senate, or if we lose the House. So another issue of people's votes not being respected. Ron Johnson looked everybody in the eye and said, your vote doesn't count, your vote doesn't matter, and act surprised, when people show up and vote against them when they have completely been against the interests of hardworking people.
I do want to get your thoughts on this. I was on Tiffany Cross's show on Saturday on MSNBC, and we talked about the Democrats' issue with black male voters. I've been saying, folks, for 10 years, you must speak directly to them. How are you doing that? These disaffected brothers who feel as if Democrats have failed them, Republicans are ignoring them, and they, in some cases, they're voting for Republican, but in many cases, they're just choosing not to vote at all.
Hey, I tell you, I'm not here to make excuses for anybody when it comes to why folks feel disenchanted with politicians and politics, especially when it comes to Washington. It's a broken place. Look, I'm a black man from Milwaukee, so I level with people when I show up, and when I show up everywhere and have the real, honest conversation, because my experience is the very real Wisconsin experience, whether it's socially, economically, regardless, and having that experience, whether it's my granddad who worked at A.O. Smith for 35 years, essentially where but if you talk to a black family in Milwaukee, there's an A.O. Smith connection, especially in the post-World War II era. Now, with that being said, the city has changed like many post-industrial cities across the Midwest, and people feel like they've been left with very few options. People feel like they've been left behind because that is the reality. People have been left behind. And I talk about how things were better and how I know that experience. And there is not a person running right now who has or who can share that experience. And also the tragedy, too. I've unfortunately, lost friends to gun violence, way too many, more than I care to count. Throughout the course of my life. Most happened in high school. And these are other instances that people have experienced, but haven't necessarily had elected leaders who share that experience and know what they're going through. I know what it's like to have been laid off from a job. I know what it's like to deal with economic insecurity, having to show up and qualify for every benefit program there absolutely was, and feeling like there weren't politicians. I also tell them that's exactly why I got involved. I tell folks that I'm not running for Senate because I think that things are going well. I'm running because we got to change things. Things need to be fixed, but they'll never be fixed as long as out of touch politicians like Ron Johnson are in office, especially when they go around selling wolf tickets to our community, telling people that they're going to do this and do that when they have no track record of doing such.
And on that particular point, I got a note, and we're talking about reaching black men. The I Am a Man poster that's right behind you. AFSCME was very much involved in that campaign in 2018 for the 50th anniversary of the assassination of Dr. King. And what I keep saying, if you want to reach brothers, you have to talk to them directly, speak to those issues. But the same as black women and others, people want someone to say, this is what you're going to do for me if I send you to Washington, D.C.
Yep, that's exactly it. You hit the nail right on the head. People got to know that you care. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And that's why we show up and we have these conversations all over the place, even the tough ones.
All right, then. Lieutenant Governor Mandela Barnes, always glad to have you on the show. Let's do it again next month as we get closer to the election, and hopefully we'll see you as the next United States Senator from the state of Wisconsin.
I appreciate it, man. You take care.
All right. Thanks a lot.
All right.
Mike, I want to start with you. I'm reading a story from the New York Times, where they're talking about how the race between Sherry Beasley and Ted Budd is tied in North Carolina, and Democrats are hopeful they can win that seat. You've got Barnes in Wisconsin, you've got Demings in Florida, you've got Fetterman in Pennsylvania, you've got Booker in Kentucky, and so we can go on with a number of different races. But the thing that for me, and I'm looking at this thing, Warnock again, who's slightly behind in Georgia, and that is you have to maximize the black vote. You got no choice. And or do you have the sense that national Democrats are flooding the zone with people, with voices, doing that? The sense that I've gotten, they're waiting to the last month like Democrats always do. Whereas you can't run that game plan anymore. You've got to be 3, 4, 6, 8, 9 months ahead, getting people ramped up, dissatisfaction with Biden, poll numbers, things along those lines. That old playbook of wait until October, that's not the smart playbook in 2022. Your thoughts?
And I agree with you. And I think the party leadership with Chairman Harrison and clearly President Biden and Vice President Harris, I think have acknowledged that and said, let's not slip into the same old kind of patterns, which means it's not just the engagement, of course, is absolutely important, but you have to have resources for that engagement. And you have to have, you're right, you certainly need the GOTV money to get out the vote money come October and November.
Bro, Mike, I literally just, hold on, Mike. I just saw a tweet right here. The Democrats brought in $15.5 million last month, bringing total to $107.8 million this year, more money than any other midterm year, and almost twice as much as was raised at this point in 2018. That's just the DNC. We're not talking about the DCCC, the DSCC, Democratic Governors Association, and also then we're talking about these PACs. The money's there. Bloomberg estimated $9 billion is going to be spent on this election. My issue is where in the hell are they spending the money? On TV or on the ground?
No, you're absolutely correct. And what you'll see though is these dollars, and it's so, as you know, it's so expensive to buy media time. And that's where most of the money goes, as we all know. That's certainly no secret. I do think, though, that some of those dollars have been put into these very tough seats. I'm not talking about the ones that are naturally blue or even purple, but chances where we can flip a seat in red and try to keep the House. I know the House is going to be difficult, but holding on to the Senate stops the potential Speaker McCarthy folks, the Trumpers, from really moving an agenda forward. So what you see is, yes, putting some money in some of these House races that have a shot, white and black and Latino. But most importantly, you're going to see a lot of that money starting to flood to these Senate candidates. Clearly, Warnock needs some help. I'm sure like the rest of my panelists, and I can't believe that Herschel Walker, who can't even put a sentence together, is ahead in polls in Georgia. Now, Georgia's Georgia, so that makes him a little, gives a little chance. But the fact that he has a chance is ridiculous. So you'll start seeing money going to Warnock. Clearly, money is going to go to Fetterman. Plus, you got these gubernatorial races. You have Wes Moore in a race in Maryland, who's an incredible candidate, who may be the first black governor of the state of Maryland if everything works out right and continues to raise money. So you have the Senate races, you have some gubernatorial races, some House races. So I think we're trying to make it competitive, but I don't think folks are really waiting until the last minute, Ron. I think they are trying to take the Ron Brown method, which is you start early and have a coordinated, what he called a coordinated campaign when he was chair of the DNC, which basically made sure that dollars were being used for everyone in the party.
But I just haven't seen that. And Randy, the thing that jumps out at me when we talk about this thing right here, that jumps out, in many ways is like what happens in corporate America. So they throw all this money at television. Folks are tuning out. The reality is you've got to put money on the ground. You've got to have folk in those rural places. You've got to be because here's the deal. There's finite time. And let me tell you who makes money during the political campaign. White corporate media. That's who makes money during political campaigns. That's when they start creating a 3 o'clock news show, a 4 o'clock show, a 5 o'clock. I mean, they create new hours to suck up political ad money. And then it just becomes, it's just an onslaught of ads, and folks just turn that thing off. What I'm saying, which I'm not seeing. And look, and I've had conversations directly with the DCCC and the DSCC and others, and I'm sitting here going, okay, where are your high-profile black surrogates? And Randy, here's a perfect example. Today is September 20th. If I added up Florida, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, North Carolina, I'll throw in Georgia. I'll give those 5 states. Those 5 campaigns, I can't remember the last email I got pitching me a surrogate from those 5 campaigns.
Unfortunately, I must agree with you 100%. I must agree. I believe that people are using the same playbook. It's ridiculous that so much money is going towards the media when how many people even watch live television anymore? Right? Like how many people are sitting at home watching it? And you're exactly right. When these ads are coming on, people will purposefully not watch these live TV because of the fact that there's so many ads that they typically were muting anyway. So it is where we must look at how the world has changed. What do people pay attention to? How do we connect with people? And it's certainly not with the media. And feet on the ground. Let, brothers talk to brothers and mention why it's so important that they get out there and vote and talk about issues that apply specifically to people. There's connections are not being made, and those connections must be made, and not just in the major metropolitan places, but like you were saying, in the rural areas, to let them know that they're not forgotten about. They must be re-energized, because I believe many of us just feel completely disenfranchised.
Toron, the thing that what I'm laying out here, and again, this is about how do you reach people, how do you touch people, and when I look at these numbers, I'm telling you, Sheriff Beasley lost as Chief Justice of the North Carolina Supreme Court by 400 votes. Yeah. 400 votes. When you're going to have somebody lose by a few thousand in one of these U.S. Senate races, maybe 10,000 votes. And when I look at black numbers, when I look at what has to happen, I'm just a firm believer that Barnes has to have black turnout at a minimum 75%. The same for Beasley, the same for Demings, the same for these other black candidates. You have got to maximize as much as you can black turnout. And the real deal is these white, and Michael, you know this, being on the DNC Finance Committee, These white political consultants, they control the money. They make their money off of the TV ad buys, and they do not want to spend money on the ground. And guess what? They don't give a damn if somebody loses because they're going to know they're going to get hired in the next race. This is where I just believe, Toron, black elected officials in the Democratic Party should be going ham, going hard against these folks like Reverend Jackson did, which led to Ron Brown becoming the first black DNC chair that created this black infrastructure. If that doesn't happen, the dollars are going to be bypass our community, and then people are going to be like, okay, what happened? Easy. You didn't put the money where the people are.
I'm glad you said that. And I'm glad this conversation is moving into what's necessary to pull in black voters, especially black male voters. The bottom line is nobody watches TV anymore. After you get to a certain age, nobody is watching cable news or broadcast TV. If you're trying to reach voters and energize black voters, you got to go where they are. And where they are is on social media, where they are is on the ground. And the other part of that is this. People have gone through 2 years of being frustrated. Now, we can talk a lot about what the Biden administration has done and what the Kamala Harris has done, but if those messages do not get out to the public, it doesn't make any difference. People are tired. People have come out of a pandemic. They've come out of 2 years of protests and everything like that. People are just frustrated. And the messaging that the Democratic Party, I think, is trying to get out to the public is just not flat. It's just not landing because they're going to the wrong places. The other thing is this. The conversation right now is about black male voters. You cannot hope to win an election with just half of the black electorate. You have to be respectful of, and you have to take into consideration the needs and the desires of black voters, men and women. And just to be completely honest with you, the messaging that black men got over the last election was dismal and it was disrespectful. And a lot of that resentment has not gone away. You see some races that are starting to push back against that. I see the Stacey Abrams is starting to move around some of that in Georgia. She's actually done a really good job of pulling in black males and telling them that, look, we want to respect your opinions. We want to have sit downs with you. That has to happen for black men and black women because last year was terrible. And you can't go to people and disrespect them and insult their intelligence and expect them to come out and vote for you. It's just not going to work. You have to talk to them the same way you would talk to any other constituency. Black men read, black men listen to speeches just like anybody else. We don't need dancing. We don't need pop locking. We don't need nobody pulling out a rapper from 1995 to tell us to go vote. We got to be taught like normal human beings respectfully.
Michael, we need a final comment on this one. I know you have to go, but final comment here. And this is the thing that jumps out at me. And I had somebody on Twitter who don't understand the game. Oh, Roland, you letting Jamie off the hook. Jamie Harrison, for everybody who don't understand, Jamie Harrison is the chair of the Democratic National Committee. Jamie Harrison does not run the Democratic National Committee. Folks, the sitting president runs it. His folks around him, they run the DNC. Now, the money game has also changed dramatically. There's so much money flowing into PACs that there's more money outside of the DNC that's actually going to the DNC. So I think a lot of people, when they go, Jamie disappointing, Jamie ain't this, they don't understand how this works, Michael. When you run the White House, the bottom line is the orders are coming from the White House as to what the DNC does. Michael, you on mute again. There you go.
Sorry about that, but you're exactly correct, and I'm glad you gave a little political 101 on that because I think a lot of people wonder why doesn't he have more juice, so to speak? And you'd rather be chair of the party, frankly, like Ron Brown was, when you're not in power in the White House, because then you have all the control. You control the purse strings, you control the type of candidates that get selected around the country, and you control what happens with the presidential election. You control the transition. You control the inauguration. And so you're right. It has nothing to do related to Jamie Harrison or his leadership. He has to take, as you call it, orders from the White House or from whoever Biden has designated to be the conduit with the DNC. But now, having said that, with all of the dollars and resources that are available to both top of the ballot candidates and down ballot candidates, he can have some say in how that money gets distributed within the DNC. Yes. Will the president have his folks he wants to take care of? Of course, relative to being consultants and pollsters. But that doesn't mean that Chairman Harrison can't make sure that people of color and women don't also get some contracts. So if he is not doing that, then he is not doing his job, because that is part of his job, is to help bring up the next generation of people of color to be political operatives, pollsters, where you can get contracts, successful career in politics. So if he's not doing that part as well as getting people elected, he's not doing his job.
Well, I'll say this here, folks. At the end of the day, look, if you choose to sit on the sidelines, shut the hell up. This is just for me real simple. If you are not participating in the process, then you have purposely checked out of it. So don't start whining and complaining about what this wasn't being done. When casting a ballot has an impact, and I'm telling you, we have history on our side. When we show up and show out, we can change elections. Doesn't happen if we don't show up. Simple as that. Got to go to a break. We'll be right back on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Download the app, folks. Also on YouTube, Facebook. Hit the like button. We should easily be at 1,100, 1,200, 1,500 likes on YouTube. Y'all don't let me have to start cussing y'all out, okay? And so hit that doggone like button. So we should be easily at more than 1,000. And when I get back from this break, I should see 1,000 likes on our YouTube channel, okay? Download the Black Star Network app, Apple phone, Android phone, Apple TV, Android TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Xbox One, Samsung Smart TV. Join the Bring the Funk fan club. Of course, send your check and money order to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. Cash App, $RM Unfiltered. PayPal, R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Again, hit the like button. I should see 1,000 likes on YouTube when we come back.
When we invest in ourselves, we all shine. Together, we are black beyond measure.
Pull up a chair. Take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
When we invest in ourselves, we're investing in what's next for all of us. Growing, creating, making moves that move us all forward. Together, we are black beyond measure.
Yo, it's your man Deion Cole from Blackish, and you're watching
Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Stay woke.
Rochelle Dearman from Tuscaloosa, Alabama, has been missing since March 12th. The 17-year-old is 5 feet 2 inches tall, weighs 160 pounds, with black hair and brown eyes. Anyone with information about Rochelle Dearman should call the Tuscaloosa, Alabama Police Department at 205-349-2121, 205-349-2121. Last night, we told you about Roger Golubski. He is the former Kansas City, Kansas police detective who was arrested on federal charges. He now is at home confinement, folks, and he was arrested for sexually assaulting several black women. Now, according to black residents of Kansas City, Kansas, his evil deeds go deeper than that. There are claims he has fathered several children, put innocent people in prison, stalked folks, intimidated them, and harassed them as well. Tonight, CeCe Mank joins us. She's a community and victim advocate, and Nico Quinn, who says Golubski forced her to testify against Lamont McIntyre, who was wrongfully imprisoned for more than 24 years for a double slaying he did not commit. Glad to have you both. Nico, I want to start with you. So this case you're talking about, so you say he forced you to testify against someone else. How?
Well, it was him and the prosecutor, which is Tara Moorhead. They showed up at my house one day and told my cousin to contact me and tell me to get in contact with them. If not, that she was going to throw me in jail and take my kids.
And did you share this with anyone? Did you tell anyone? Did you have anyone fighting on your behalf when this happened?
I told everybody that would listen. At the time, my cousin was an attorney, and I contacted her and asked her, should I go? Would she go with me? She told me that she had another engagement, so I went there by myself.
Did you actually testify against him?
Did I? Yes, I had to testify against him.
And these threats, were they? You said it was from Golubski as well as an assistant DA?
Yes, what was happening is that he was basically coming to my home, trying to get in contact with me. He picked me up on one occasion and took me up to see her. On this particular day, I went up there, he dropped me off, and I went in to see her. When I got there, I waited for about 45 minutes to go in her office. When I went into her office, she had on her desk the crime scene pictures of my cousins. My one cousin name was Danielle Quinn. Me and him was real close, and my other cousin was Donnie Ewing. Danielle Quinn had got 4 shots to the head. So when I walked in there and she had them on the table, I told her, I said, I didn't need to see those because I was at the scene. I was at the crime scene. So she started asking me about Lamont. And I told her Lamont didn't do it. I said the person that did do it, they had jumped on my cousin 2 weeks prior about some money. And she was telling me that they knew Lamont had did it. They had his clothes. They had the gun. They know he was the right person. And she was asking me, well, don't you want somebody to be convicted for this? Don't you want somebody to pay for this? And I said, he didn't do it. And then that's when she started telling me again about taking my kids and throwing me in prison. So the second occasion was when we got to the courtroom, and I told her, I said, I can't do this. I said, Lamont, his ears are too big. This is the first time me seeing Lamont face to face. And I said, his ears are too big and he's too tall. He couldn't do it. So she looked at me and she said, if you don't do what we said we was going to do, I'm going to throw your black ass in jail and take your kids. And at that time, I didn't know what she was capable of doing, but I know she could take my kids from me. I was the only one that was taking care of everybody's kids. If my aunt or my sister, anybody went to jail, I raised their kids. And I knew if something happened to me, I knew she could get rid of my kids and I'll never see my kids again.
CC, for folks who don't know, everything that we have read, the stories that we have read, is that Roger Golubski was a terror. He terrorized black folks in Kansas City, Kansas. That this was a thug with a badge and a gun.
And then also, my sister, at the age of 16 or 17, she was walking home from work one night, and he picked her up and he raped her. And she came home and was telling me and my other sister about it. She was just on the bed crying and crying. And we was like, we got to tell mama. She said, no, if I tell, he going to kill me. So my sister ended up turning out being on drugs because of our childhood. We had been getting raped as little kids by our uncles. My sister ended up on drugs. And then 2000, my sister was shot 17 times. My sister post had did 37 months in prison. And Golubski dropped her off at my home. One of the young ladies came in and told me he was on the back street waiting on her. When my sister walked back out the door, I asked her, I said, who dropped you off? She said, I got a ride. And I said, who? She said, a friend. The lady, I said, well, they told me Golubski dropped you off, is back there waiting on you. So she got her clothes, she left. About 2 to 3 weeks later, my sister was dead.
CC, the stories that we have heard, not just right now, but from others, is just beyond horrible about what this cop has done for years.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I've heard more stories, and I simply just shared Rhonda Tribune's picture. But I have to put into context that Miss Nico about the district attorney, or not the district attorney, the prosecutor, because Officer Golubski's partner, who Laura McDonald mentioned, went on to be the police chief. In 2019, there was an investigation where the news said that our city administrator, Doug Bach, made a handshake deal with this man to give him a free house that was out on our county lake, also with free utilities. They paid him to live there, also while paying him to be the police chief. All while he denied these allegations, even though witnesses said he was there sometimes. So it goes beyond these police officers. I also have to say U.S. Attorney McAllister said for this to go on for 30 years, he had to have help or willing ignorance. You know, they just willingly ignored all of these things or participated.
Well, obviously, that was they totally ignored it because this went on for years, and finally he was arrested by the FBI last week. And you know, but do you believe that, Nico, in what you described, has the statute of limitations run out? Have the feds talked to you or family members with regards to your interaction with Roger Golubski?
Well, not really. You know, the feds don't come out to talk to you. You have to come and talk to them. And when I told him my story, actually, like I stated, Golubski he stalked me from 1994 to probably about 2010. My last time seeing Golubski was maybe 2012. I pulled him over and asked him a question. Also, when they arrested him, do you know that was the first time I got some sleep? Because if anybody know, I will walk up out of a house, I would leave because I'm always thinking somebody after me. My children, I was staying with the person I talked to last night. My kids didn't graduate from school because I kept pulling them out of school because I was scared that something was going to happen. I was scared that they were going to take my kids once I started telling that Lamont wasn't the killer.
Cece, go ahead.
So I just, he has a victimology, you know, that I don't know if they're investigating or not, because again, and you mentioned he had assaulted women. One of his victims, who he is going to on trial for, he started having sex with her at 13 and stopped when she was 18. So this is not just women; these were also children involved. But there's missing women who have never been found, and I just want to name a couple: Dorothy Cooper, and they all had something in common. They had red something, red nails, red clothing, something. Dorothy Cooper was found. She had red nails on one hand because they had cut off her other one, and a red earring. Kelly Fant has never been found, but several people know that she had some type of connection with Mr. Golubski. Rhonda Tribune Easley was found 6 minutes from his known address and 7 to 8 minutes from his mother's address. Also, Miss Bassett, who was found in 2021, was also found 6 minutes from Mr. Golubski's known address and 7 minutes from his mother's address, which he was both known to occupy. Also, we heard of Stacey Quinn's story. She also was found with red items of some sort and was known. All of these women were known to either be harassed by him or have some type of relationship with him. and they
It is
either are
quite
missing or
disturbing.
completely dead or found
Right.
dead.
Uh,
And also,
it is
Roland,
quite disturbing. Yes.
my sister called my
Go ahead.
mom the night that she had passed away. I had seen my sister that Friday, I believe, and she had told me that she loved me. My sister had called my mom that night that she was killed, maybe about 9 or 10 o'clock, my mom said, and asked her for $100. She told her she didn't have any money. She told my mom, well, that she loved her and that would be her last time talking to her. She called about 9 or 10. My sister was killed about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. And the crazy thing about it is that this so-called prosecutor, she was at the crime scene. I've never heard of that before. I had people come to me and tell me that my sister was talking when they seen her, because so many people seen this incident, and they said it was a white man with a long ponytail and a trench coat that killed my sister. They arrested a black 25-year-old man. My sister was shot center mass. She was shot in her heart, her lung, her kidneys. She had 17 bullets. We took the cover off of her, and all you seen is them bullets just all in her midsection, all in her lethal organs. So this was a target. This was not no 25-year-old black man that never been trained to shoot a gun to kill my sister like that. And that's not the only one. She's not the only one. I've seen Monique Allen leave my house. She had Golubski's car. She called him to pick her up. She got killed the next day. Rhonda Tribute walked off my porch to go get in the car with him, and she got killed, and they found her body the next day. So this is just customary for him, because he already knew that he was going to get away with what he done. He only did it where he knew he can get away with it. He did it where he was comfortable at. And he also told police, when he told his victims, who are you gonna tell? Oh, you gonna call the police? I am the police. Who does that?
Well, we certainly hope with him being arrested that more will be uncovered by the Department of Justice as they continue this case. We thank you, CC Mank, as well as Nico Quinn, for sharing your thoughts with us.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so very much.
Nice. Thank you for having us.
Toron and Robin, I want to bring you in, and that is in this here. Sorry, Toron and Randy, I'm sorry. And that is, I think about the case out of Oklahoma City, where several black women were raped by a cop there. Folks who prey on individuals who believe that they have nowhere to turn. And what's amazing is that it's the investigation that was done by news media. I mean, this dude was well known, and folks had talked about it for years, yet he avoided prosecution all of these years, Randy. That is what's crazy to me.
It's crazy, and yet it's not. That's the real depressing part about it. I mean, he wields a certain level of power and protection. The people, we've been saying repeatedly that the people that we want to protect us aren't. We are giving certain individuals that are not necessarily fans of our community and an immeasurable amount of power, and they're getting away with just horrible crimes, so hard to hear. And what really frustrated me, they started out by saying that he's at home, he's confined to his home right now. That it seems as if that only happens to certain individuals, and it certainly is not happening in our community. So already, this man is still being protected and being able to even facing these charges in the most comfortable way possible. He is clearly working from a great place of privilege, and it's extremely disheartening.
To run.
You know, this story was horrific, but it's almost like the more things change, the more they stay the same, because we know the history of this country. We know the history of the sexual violation of black women by white supremacists, whether it was on the Middle Passage, whether it was on a plantation, or whether it was by somebody, in a military uniform or somebody wearing a badge. This sort of thing happens when you have absolute power and nobody, and you're dealing with a community that you feel less than. I mean, that you feel a community that you feel like is less than you, and you have the power of life and death. And when you're dealing with people who don't have anywhere to turn, who may have had some run-ins with the law before, and everything they do makes them feel nervous that they can be put back into a situation where they get deeper involved with like the incarceration system or something like that, these things happen. What's sick about it to me is that, as you said, he was so well known in the community, and nobody, whether in that department or anybody on the DA's office or the county prosecutor or the city prosecutor cared enough about what happened to these women or saw a pattern here that they would go and pursue. That's what's dangerous. And again, like I said earlier, these sort of things happen a lot in these smaller towns that are away from major media presence, because they can get away with it because they know that they say the best sunlight is the best disinfectant. When the media in your town doesn't care about what's going on, or they don't want to have the resource to follow that up, these sort of things can happen for generations. It can happen for decades, like this, apparently what happened with this individual. The only thing I can say is I hope with all these things finally coming to light that this family, these women can get some closure. The brother who was wrongfully in prison can get free, and this police officer it gets dealt with, because this really is horrific.
Indeed, it is, folks. Got to go to a break. We come back. Our marketplace segment where we'll talk with an actor who said, you know what, I'm not getting the right skincare stuff for me. Well, what the heck? I'll go in business for myself. We'll tell you his story. When we come back, Roland Martin Unfiltered, streaming live on the Black Star Network. Please download the Black Star Network app. Available on all platforms: Apple phone, Apple TV, Android TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Xbox One, Samsung Smart TV. You can join our Bring the Funk fan club. All your dollars make it possible for us to do what we do. See and check in money orders to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. Cash App, $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. We'll be right back.
When we invest in ourselves, our glow, our vision, our vibe, we all shine. Together, we are black beyond measure.
We're all impacted by the culture, whether we know it or not. From politics to music and entertainment, it's a huge part of our lives, and we're going to talk about it every day right here on The Culture with me, Farajii Muhammad, only on the Black Star Network.
When we invest in ourselves, we all shine. Together, we are black beyond measure.
You are watching Roland Martin, and I'm on his show today, and it's, what, huh? We should have some cue cards.
Hey, what's up, y'all? It's your boy, Jacob Lattimore, and you're now watching Roland Martin right now.
All right, folks, talk to African Americans who are models, who are actors, actresses, even folks in television. They'll tell you, man, it is hard being black. You got folks who can't do black hair. You even got folks who, when it comes to their skin, the right skincare products, they run into all sorts of issues. My next guest was one of those folks. Dorian Renaud had this problem where, again, not finding the right products. And so he said, you know what the hell? Let me just go ahead and do this thing myself. He created Butter Skin, and he joins us now from Los Angeles. Glad to have you on the show. And so what issues were you running into when it came to skincare products?
Well, first of all, how you doing, Mr. Roland Martin, the legend, the icon himself? And, I see black don't crack your way, but, I do tell people all the time that black does crack, in many ways. You got to take care of your skin. Oftentimes, I think in the black community, we weren't really educated, like other communities, to take care of our skin. I grew up in a barbershop. My dad owned a barbershop, so self-care was always really important to me. And so when I started struggling with my skin, I found a regimen that worked for me. It was shea butter, off the streets of Harlem. It was a gentle cleanser and it was a vitamin C serum. And so my skin really started clearing up. And, some of the things that we struggle with as Black people, like hyperpigmentation, dark spots, dark circles under your eyes, I noticed they weren't really being addressed by some of the white counterparts in the business. And so I brought butter to the streets in 2018. And now we are here with so many butter lovers. And, we're available in, over 7 to 8 retailers here in the States.
And I take it that now, first of all, somebody is probably watching going, well, I'm not quite understanding what these products have to do with you being an actor or a model. Well, explain that.
Well, I started off in the business at about 19. I was modeling and I did a show on BET called College Hill before I started my acting career. And, it was a little bit of vanity. I wanted to appear how I had appeared on television. I was insecure about my skin. And I would notice the dark spots on my skin a little bit more because, when I was in front of the camera, they would put makeup on me. And so many Black men were reaching out, once my skin kind of started healing itself and I started seeing a dermatologist, of course, using the right products. I realized they were reaching out and somewhat embarrassed about, some of the skincare problems that they had. And, I wanted to show that skincare wasn't demasculating, for one, and it is for everybody. And we put products and ingredients in our products, I should say, that are strictly for melanated, enriched skin. So, I think, we found solutions and we listen to our customers. And so, when they tell us that they're having problems with certain things, we try to address them.
Let's go to my folks, my guests. Let's see here. Randy, I'll start with you.
I'm excited. I'm excited about this butter. I don't even like the name of it. And you got some. I want to be a butter lover.
That's right. Well, we'll continue.
And it is true. Like we never learn to protect our skin as some of our white counterparts, even when it comes to like sunscreen and how we address how much we will, hyperpigmentate instead of our hypopigmentate. One or the other. We get the dark spots that is not often not addressed. So, bravo to you, brother. And I definitely gonna check it out.
Thank you so much.
Karan.
Yes, sir. I'd like to ask you about
go ahead.
What process did you go through to put these formulas together to specifically address some of the issues that Black skin deals with?
Well, I started with the roots of what we use, and that's thick products. I remember my grandmother using things like Vaseline and butters. And so we get our butter directly from Ghana, Africa. It was really important for me to import it directly from Ghana. So we whip it down in Florida, and I worked with a chemist. So I spent a lot of time down in the lab in Florida, learning about different chemicals, learning about different ingredients that work for our skin. And we develop each formula hands-on with the lab. And, we are always evolving into learning about new things that can help our skin types. For me, it was shea butter, and then we started expanding into other different types of butter. And so learning the benefits of butter and serums like the vitamin C serum, which, I was using the serum because I was here in Hollywood and I was an actor and, I had access to those things. But I realized that the general population and a lot of Black people didn't know how much serums could really help your skin. And so I wanted to put that in my kit so that I can introduce the world and, my world, I should say, and that was young Black people and people in my community to, how to keep your skin looking healthy and how to put vitamins in your skin like you do in your body.
Great, by the way, man.
Where are you? First of all, you're talking about getting products from Ghana. Now, where are you putting? Where are they manufactured? In terms of who you're working with on that.
We manufacture in Florida, so I spend a lot of my time at the lab. We own our own lab, which is amazing because I'm able to go in and doctor up things in a short amount of time or make adjustments. But we're in Fort Myers, Florida, and so I spend a lot of time out there with the chemists and, working really hard. And there's so many, emerging Black brands coming out now and celebrity brands. And I admire all of them, but I encourage people that are getting into this space to learn as much as you can about the skincare business, learn as much as you can about formulas. You go through testing and FDA approval and all these different things. And I think, it looks it looks appealing to somebody, say, let me slap my name on something. But the more that you dive in, the more that you know, and you can actually create really good products for people. And it's nothing wrong with white labeling, but what I love about butter is that we are original and we make all of our products from scratch, and I'm able to see the process take place.
And you're absolutely right. First of all, I mean, this business has exploded over the last several years. I mean, I just know of so many different people who are creating skincare lines because people are just spending a lot of money on this. And so what are you also doing to stand out? You talk about being in 8 retail locations. What are your also marketing plans moving forward?
Well, you know, I try to add real story to butter. So not only is butter a skincare brand, but it's a lifestyle. You know, we try to, you know, keep the audience entertained with our campaigns. We're community-based, so we do a lot of things in the community. And I think that our stuff is just good. You know, it's really good. You know, you can have a lot of products out there, but if your stuff isn't good, then, you know, I don't think that, you know, people will be returning. And so, you know, we started off as a word of mouth company, and although we're able to, you know, enhance how we see beauty, you know, through our eyes, you know, the stuff is amazing and the reviews don't lie. So I think a lot of people out there, you know, they tend to put their name on something. They don't really know what's in the products. You know, I know everything in my products are good, natural, and, you know, people really love butter, and it's working for them.
I love the fact that you
tell folks whether.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I love the fact that he
Go ahead.
Getting the shea butter directly from Ghana. You know, last time I was in Ghana, and I actually was looking at the shea butter and who was taking most of it and making dollars out of, you know, the richness of our motherland. And it's not us. It wasn't us. And so I'm really happy to see that your company there's a connection there. That makes me feel really good about the product.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it was important, you know, to enhance the economy where you can get that from, you know. And when I was getting ready to start formulating, I said, look, can we get it directly from Africa? And, you know, that was my first thought, because when I would get it in New York, when I would travel to New York doing my modeling trips and stuff, you know, it would come in this big block, you know, real shea butter that you could only get, you know, at certain markets directly from Africa. And I would melt it down and put scents in it and make my own little concoction. And, you know, I always say I did not create shea butter whatsoever, but we whip our shea butter so fine down and so nicely. And then you pair that shea butter with our vitamin C serum and a cleanser, and you have a perfect skincare routine. It's easy. And I tell people, you don't have to put so many things on your face. And the minute that I stopped being so hard on my skin and being a little bit more gentle on my skin and easier on my skin, it really started to heal. So, you know, I think the same goes for our bodies. You have to take care of your skin the same way.
All right, then. Tell folks where they can get butter skin.
They can get butter skin at Ulta Beauty, Macy's, Nordstrom's, JCPenney, Saks Fifth Avenue is coming soon. And we have a few other retailers, but go to butterskin.com. Check us out on social media so you can find out how to use the product. Check us out.
All right. Well, I'm actually in LA, so I'm sure the product is in the office. So I'll try it when I get back to DC on Thursday.
Yes, sir.
So Dorian, we appreciate it, man. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much.
All right, folks. Some sad news. A couple of the folks who are now ancestors. Maury Wills, a long-time baseball player who hailed from D.C. public schools. He passed away at the age of 89. He played for the L.A. Dodgers, was a shortstop. He mastered the art of base stealing in the 1960s and became one of the most exciting ball players of his time. He died Monday night at his home in Sedona, Arizona. He set a modern Major League Baseball record when he stole 104 bases in 1962, crushing the record of 96 set by Ty Cobb in 1915. He set the stage for Lou Brock of the St. Louis Cardinals, who stole 118 bases in 1974, and Ricky Henderson of the Oakland A's, who set the current record with 130 steals in 1982. Again, baseball legend Maury Wills is dead at the age of 89. Reverend Herbert Lusk, who became the first NFL player to kneel in the end zone after scoring a touchdown, He has passed away. He was 69 years old. Lusk gained national attention after his 70-yard touchdown run in 1977. The Philadelphia Eagles running back later said, "The end zone became my pulpit." He, of course, went on after retiring to become a prominent pastor in Philadelphia, involved with a number of different events as well as community building initiatives there. He was a prominent supporter of President George W. Bush in his presidential run of 2000, as well as re-election in 2004. Philadelphia City Council President Darrell Clark posted this on Twitter. North Philadelphia and our city lost a true friend yesterday. Reverend Herb Lusk has passed. From his early days as a running back for the Philadelphia Eagles through his long career as a pastor of Greater Exodus Baptist Church on North Broad Street, Reverend Lusk always preached the universal truths of self-reliance and hard work. He created the nonprofit People for People and helped so many find the right path in life. On a personal level, Reverend Lusk was a true friend and presided over the funeral of my brother, an honor for my family. Reverend Lusk cared deeply about Philadelphia and its people. He truly walked the walk of service in his life. Our deep condolences to his family and congregants. Rest in power, Reverend. Lusk later served with the Eagles as the team chaplain. He died at 69. I'm going to end the show with this story that came from Herb Lusk, Toron and Randy. A few years ago, I was playing golf in Philadelphia with Reverend Lusk and some other folks. And when we were done, we went inside and to get us something to eat and drink. And as we're sitting there, he told us a story. As I said, he was a very prominent supporter of President George W. Bush. Well, President Bush gave him a card once, and he said that, "Hey, Herb, if you're ever in trouble, call this number." Well, Pastor Lusk happened to be traveling on the motherland, and a coup broke out while he was there. Now, mind you, I'm telling this story because Herb Lusk said, "Now, if you ever tell this story, I'm going to deny it." So typically, y'all, what happens, when someone passes, sort of off the record, sort of goes away. And so I revealed the same thing when Chadwick Boseman passed. I didn't reveal the text he sent me when he was alive, but until after he passed. So Lusk said he's in this country and he's at the airport. All of a sudden, shooting breaks out. And all of a sudden, the airport's on lockdown. They literally are in the middle of a coup. So what does he do? He pulls that card out and he makes a call to that number. And the person says, "Hold on, Reverend Lusk." And then next thing the voice he hears is President George W. Bush. And he says, "Herb, what's going on?" He said, "I don't know what's going on, but I'm in this country and they're shooting at the airport and looks like there's a coup going on." And he said, "Herb, you hold tight 1 second." And then Herb said they hung up. And then a couple of hours later, they're in the airport. And all of a sudden, over the intercom, they hear, "Paging Pastor Herb Lusk. Paging Pastor Herb Lusk." And he's like, "Okay, what's going on?" So he stands up. And outside was a helicopter of Marines. And that helicopter was sent to pick him up. And then all of a sudden, he gets on the helicopter, and one of the Marines says, "Sir, we're never supposed to ask who we are sent to get. But I got to ask, who are you?" We cracked up laughing at that story. And he said, "If you ever tell that story, I'll deny it." But that's how close Reverend Herb Lusk was to President George W. Bush. And when he needed that help, he placed that phone call, and some U.S. Marines were able to rescue him from that particular country in that dangerous airport. So Reverend Herb Lusk, good brother. I had a chance to meet him several times for us to tee up and play golf as well. So condolences to his family. Reverend Herb Lusk passing at the age of 69. Folks, that is it for us. Tomorrow I will be attending, I will be live on the show, but tomorrow I'm going to be attending the Apple Films premiere, the Los Angeles premiere of the Sidney Poitier doc, produced by Oprah Winfrey and my man Reggie Hutland. Be taking place tomorrow night, but I'll be live on the show, and then, of course, we'll have the next day some video from the event as well. Looking forward to that. It's an amazing story of Sir Sidney Poitier, and we we cannot wait to see. I can't wait to see it, and we cannot wait to share with you what we hear about it. So, Randy, thanks a lot. Torun, thanks a lot. Michael Brown had to leave earlier. We appreciate you as well. Folks, that is it. Please support us in what we do. What we do every single day, folks, nobody else is doing. Nobody. I keep telling y'all. Byron Allen's not doing it. Black Enterprise is not doing it. Essence is not doing it. Blavity is not doing it. Ebony is not doing it. The content that we have every single day on this show is unmatched. Not just this show, but the 2-hour show with Farajii Muhammad. Then, of course, you have Dr. Greg Carr. You have Deborah Owens, Reverend Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, Stephanie Humphrey. We got Rolling with Roland. We got other shows that we are got in development right now, folks. And so this is truly Black-owned content that we are building and developing. And so we want you to support us in what we do. And so please download our Black Star Network app. You know, we've got nearly 900,000 people subscribed to our YouTube channel. It would be fantastic if we had 900,000 people who have downloaded our app. And so if y'all could please do that, that'll be great. We're available on all platforms: Apple TV, Android TV, Apple phone, Android phone, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Xbox One, Samsung Smart TV. And, of course, you can also support us in what we do. We need to raise $100,000 a month from our fan base between now and the end of the month. That's 2,000 people a month at $50 each. You can give less, you can give more. We appreciate every single dollar. Check and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. That is it for me from Los Angeles. Yes, I love to wear my Astros jersey when I come to L.A. because it drives the Dodgers fans crazy. And I love it. I'll see y'all tomorrow. Holla!